Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. Welcome, fellow geekologists. Welcome to another episode of What's News. There's a lot of geeky content out there right now. A lot of things have dropped. The streaming services are hot. And one thing I'm really excited about is the new season of Bad Batch, season 3. So they just dropped 3 episodes there on Disney Plus, 3-episode drop. Then they're going to drop 1 episode every week for a few months for this last and final season of The Bad Batch. And so I'm really excited about Star Wars content. I am Will Rose, one of your favorite Star Wars fans here on Systematic Geekology. We have a lot of them. And I'm very excited to welcome one of our new hosts, John. John, how are we doing? Here we go. We got to do the
lightsabers.
Got to do the lightsabers. And John, welcome to another episode. When we talked about doing this episode about the Bad Batch, you came to mind because you have some Star Wars fandom, and there may be some of our listeners who've heard your voice before, but reintroduce yourself and then share a little bit about where do you land in Star Wars fandom? Like, perhaps what was the first movie you saw, or what era, prequel, original trilogy, sequel trilogy, animated. There's a lot of Star Wars content. So where do you land in all that?
Okay, so to begin with, hi, my name is John Erdley. My pen name is John Transylvania. I am an independent author. And I've been into Star Wars since I was a kid. I started out with the 1990s VHSs. My dad showed me the original trilogy, which would be episode 4, 5, and 6. And I grew up on I think it was the first remaster or whatever on the VHS special edition. So that's the version that I grew up with, and that's the version that I was familiar with. And then my dad took me to theaters when I was little to see the episodes 1, 2, and 3 when they came out, and that was huge. We were all about Darth Maul and lightsaber battles and all that stuff in the Clone Wars and stuff when we were kids. And nowadays, I want to say we just finished last year. We just finished watching through Clone Wars, the animated series, because I had never seen it before.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, we were going through Bad Batch, and I've seen Bad Batch, up until present, but the family has only seen it about midway through season 2 on Bad Batch. So, but right now, my favorite is probably Ahsoka, and I'm even wearing an Ahsoka shirt, if you can see it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's pretty exciting to be a Star Wars fan nowadays. We got a lot of content with Mando and Ahsoka and Bad Batch, and all this new Star Wars content is good.
I agree. Yeah, I've shared before that one of the first movies I saw in the theater was A New Hope when I was 5 years old in the theater, and grew up with the original trilogy. That was a big part of my childhood and imagination and fandom and geekiness and the action figures. And, every birthday or Christmas, I had to have the next, big Star Wars toy or action figures. I was asking for that. And then, Return of the Jedi ended. I thought that was it. I got into the expanded universe a little bit, but for me, it was kind of like, oh, well, I guess that's Star Wars. I just kind of lean into what we have. But then the rumors of the prequels coming and episode 1 in 1999. And so I experienced that a little bit later in life. And then, with that whole fallout with Star Wars and George Lucas and the fandom and all those things, didn't know we were going to get any more Star Wars even after the prequels. And then, Disney acquired Star Wars, and they're filling in some gaps. And I think the Clone Wars animated series, for others, for those who are a little, less enthusiastic about the prequels or disappointed about the prequels, I think the Clone Wars animated series really helped fill in the gaps and make those stories or movies better for fans. It really helped lean into that and was very nostalgic for those who grew up like yourself on the prequels. I think Bad Batch has a similar tone that hopefully is leaning into more with another trilogy. We'll get that into a little bit. But yeah, you're right. There's ton of content. If you don't like one series or show, guess what? There'll be others, and you can lean into what you do love. Now, you did mention one of your favorite movies or shows. Was it Andor? Was it Andor
Oh,
was one of your?
Ahsoka. I forgot to mention Andor. Andor is fantastic. It kind of
Yeah.
the writing and the speed of the show reminds me of like the older 1950s, 60s movies where it focuses more on character, dialogue, and world building, and it's not just action constantly like The Mandalorian. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
the
and
territory.
I'm getting some Andor feels for this new season of Bad Batch. Again, we'll talk more of that, but there's definitely fans out there, and myself included, are kind of like, oh, this first episode of season 3 has an Andor vibe to it, and kind of a slower paced, a little bit more dark. Yeah, character development. I won't bury the lead. I'm liking the start for this new season. Yeah. So, if you were to say, John, in terms of where you land, you said Ahsoka and some of the Clone Wars. If we remember correctly, there was some skepticism around Ahsoka at the beginning of the Clone Wars, and people have learned to grow um, to love her over the years as she's developed as a character. Were you kind of on board from the very beginning, or was it something that had to grow on you?
Well, from the first little animated movie that they made, that was like an hour and a half special or whatever. It was kind of iffy. It was a kind of a I'm trying to remember the correct word for it. It was really hokey. I want to say the animated movie was kind of but it was an introduction to the character. But seriously, in the arc where she was falsely accused by the Jedi Council is when her character was just solid for me, and I was sold with her because she had immense character development. She started making personal choices. She realized the Jedi Council wasn't, the great, amazing, people that she thought they were. Instead, they were just like they could be blinded, or they were just horrifically mistaken, and they didn't even do a good job investigating. And it was just a real good turning point for me with her character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you see that kind of deconstruction. We knew it was going somewhere. It's like, I remember when she first emerged onto the scene, people were like, what? Anakin couldn't have a Padawan. Where does she show up in the movies? We never saw her. And I was like, well, you know what? Be patient with the storytelling. They'll get there. They'll explain it. Like let's be patient with what they're trying to do here. And they'll learn along the way as well. And so we saw her character growth, and then, her running with the Jedi Council. We knew that they were going to fall. We knew that were going to be dark times. We knew that they were going to fall from grace. There was going to be a deconstruction and reconstruction of what Jediism even means. It parallels to our own faith and history within the church itself, with reformations and those kinds of things. So I think that's all there, and I think that's where people really started leaning at her and understood what her character was about, and perhaps the Bad Batch can kind of do that for those of us who are less enthusiastic with what Disney did with the sequel trilogy. They're doing some things here that maybe will help explain some things, or at least get us to a point where we kind of understand where they're going. John, watching Bad Batch season 1 and 2, what were your feelings about that series, and then leading into this new series?
Well, season 1, I want to say I really don't like Omega. Omega, I don't know, she comes off to me as an annoying little brat, and is always getting them into trouble. Like all the time, she's making poor decisions, and they have to go rescue her. The Bad Batch themselves, I love the clones. I love that they're kind of like the outliers. They have messed up quote unquote DNA or whatever, and they're and they have special talents. Because we always love like little crews on sci-fi shows where like we have a crew that we can grow attached to, and everyone has a certain specialty, and the humor is really funny, especially with Wrecker. I mean, he's just a big lovable lug, and he's really funny, and makes my kids laugh a lot. But the tone of the show, especially with season 2, is that it gets darker. It gets darker with the fall of the clones and the Jedi with Order 66, and the Bad Batch are kind of an audience surrogate, because they're like, what's going on? Why are we killing all the Jedi? Why aren't the clones listening to us or listening to reason? And then they, figure out about the chips in their heads and all this other stuff. And it also fleshes out more of that, the end of the Clone Wars era.
Yeah. I like that they are showing I wanted to see a bridge from how do they get from clones to stormtroopers? How do they get from clones, these created in a lab army with like real live human beings, or I guess clones are real life human beings too, but like people that sign up and volunteer to be a part of this intergalactic empire and an army. And so I think what they're doing here, they are bridging the gap to show that this movement from the clones to stormtroopers, and then what military industrial complex can do to not take care of their veterans, to push them aside. Oh, we've used you. You've been our tool. It's time to move on to the next thing. Rick, not taking into consideration the value of these human beings, that they have dignity too. So them touching that personal part of who they are, I think was well done with 1 and 2. It had to find its legs, similar to the Clone Wars, same with Ahsoka, kind of having to find its legs and its rhythm and its writing, and take time with that. I've grown to love Omega, what she's doing this new season. Man, I'm really compelled by her to see where she would go, even after this animated series ends. But yeah, that bridge from clones to troopers, very intriguing. And I did see this. I don't know what you think about this, John, but I did see a meme where they put up the penguins of Madagascar right next to the Bad Batch and said, isn't this basically the Bad Batch except as penguin? Because I don't know if you've seen Madagascar.
Basically,
but
yes.
Yeah, those penguins that have their different role, and you have a commander and you have a goofball and then you have one that's a tech. They're all have their role as these like mission spies. And I'm like, oh, the penguins of Madagascar are similar to the Bad Batch. That's kind of,
it's pretty funny. It's a similar, it's kind of a trope with the character archetypes.
Yep. I like season 1 too. I think there is also some online chatter and people and fans who are going like, they have like the meat of the story of the progression from clone troopers to stormtroopers, and then this kind of cloning thing and the underlying Project Necromancer that we saw in The Mandalorian, we saw in other places, we saw also in Ahsoka. Like there's this thing going on underlying it, but then you also have these filler episodes of the Adventure of the Week, and I'm like, I'm okay with that. Like you said, like your kids are watching this and they like Wrecker. They need to have lighthearted. It can't be heavy and/or storytelling every single week. It's also a cartoon. It's also for kids. Let's draw multi-generational of families and people into some Star Wars storytelling, sci-fi storytelling. And I'm okay with that. I don't know how you feel about that in terms of the vibe you're looking for, or what kind of Star Wars you're hunger for. But how's that sit with you?
So I like kind of, it's like a mix of the episodic, adventure of the day. Like this is the shenanigans we got into this day. But it does, further the plot. Some episodes are real plot heavy, where it, especially in season 2, when they get towards Mount Tantus and they're trying to infiltrate the Imperial commands and things like that. It's that's when the plot of season 2 starts to, I want to say, bridge the gap to A New Hope.
Yeah, because there's some, for those who are casual fans of Star Wars, there's a deep timeline. It's hard to figure out, if you're just picking this, like, where does this fall? Where is this on the timeline? This is after Revenge of the Sith, and it's before A New Hope, and you got to get to A New Hope and that kind of era, and then it's before before Mandalorian, before Ahsoka. They're off and about doing their things, but this is another big part of the Star Wars universe that I think they need to tackle a little bit. What's going on with the clones? How are they treated? How are the stormtroopers? And then, the end of Omega is a clone, a female version of a clone. And there's something special about her. And there's something that the Empire wants, and she's being hidden and rescued. And at the end of season 2, she is taken in captivity, basically to, like you said, Mount Tantus, to do experiments on, to look at to look at her blood, to see what's going on, all because Emperor Palpatine, as we know, is dabbling in cloning. He's looking at immortality. He's looking at M counts, metachlorian counts, to see what can handle the intensity of his own force wielding abilities. And so all that's kind of the underlying plot thread there for this upcoming and final season of Bad Batch. We didn't share maybe perhaps spoilers, but hopefully you didn't click on this if you haven't seen it yet. You can go watch first. Am I
Spoilers
missing
ahead.
yeah, is there anything in there that I'm kind of missing, John, about the where we're leading up to in terms of season 3?
No, and it's worth mentioning that a lot like Mount Tantus and a lot of this stuff is mentioned in Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy, and how
Wow.
a lot of this is coming into play with Ahsoka, and they're all it's almost like a new version of that trilogy, which was now it's Legends canon, but I have heard that Timothy Zahn is working behind the scenes with Dave Filoni and everybody, and he's got to give them their blessing of kind of almost adapting the that story where the Emperor's clones are being built on Mount Tantus, and that's, I think, going to start to explain where Snoke comes from and how
Mhm.
a lot of the stuff that's created in the sequel trilogy comes into play.
Yeah. And it's also to note, I forgot that we did have our first casualty at the end of season 2. Was it Tech
Tech.
that fell supposedly? We never saw the body, excuse me, but like fell to his death. So you have a team of 5 that's now team of 4 because Crosshair didn't go with them. They sided with the Empire. So there's really 4. You have who's the 4? We have Hunter and Wrecker, and then you have what's the other 2?
Echo.
And then who's the other one? They're kind of off. I think that they're going to be on the next episode in season 4. So yeah, you have this team, Hunter and Wrecker, and then Echo and Rex, I guess, are out and about doing their and Tech. So Tech passed away, or we think so. Crosshair is out and about, but yeah. So we begin season 3 with them in captivity. Crosshair and Omega doing experiments, and Hunter and Wrecker are out to find where she is. She's in a secret location somewhere that can't be found, and so they're on the hunt. They're on a mission to find Omega, to rescue her and get her out of the hands of the Empire. And doing whatever experiments they're doing on clones. So that's kind of where season 2 ends up. And here we are, season 3. We do have a comment. I was kind of looking at that. Okay, here we go. Our friend Christian, I do appreciate them continuing to bring in the best part of Legends continuity into the new canon, even though it leads up to some subpar films in the end. That's Christian's hot take on the sequel trilogy. I think we have a similar mindset when it comes to that. There's a lot of part of the sequel trilogy that I really like. I think they missed the boat on some things too. That was and I think they've learned along the way what some of the mistakes and trying to correct them, or maybe overcorrect. I don't know, but I think you have content like the Bad Batch that can help with that and lean in and take their time with it. And I trust Filoni. In Filoni, I trust. John, do you trust Filoni with your Star Wars?
He's doing a great job. He has a passion for this, and you can tell he has a passion for it, and his ideas are really cool, even though the fans got a little overzealous with their theories in every episode of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
The theories were all over the place. But, by and large, his ideas are really good, and he's capitalizing on a lot of stuff that the prequels kind of started. And I really appreciate bringing Anakin back and kind of bringing the redemption of his character, the redemption of the actor, the new writing, and all that stuff. Seeing Hayden Christensen reprise his role multiple times, and also being able to homage the Clone Wars animated show with his the armor and keeping that stuff canon. It was just a love letter to the fans, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah, I trust Filoni and Favreau, and they're. I mean, there's parts. A lot of other people who worked on Star Wars and the sequel fans that sequel trilogy that are fans too. They just want to take it in a different direction. I think that some of it may be a little tone deaf in terms of understanding fans and progress. I'm all for progression and looking at new ways at the Force and Jedi and all that kind of thing. I'm ready for a new story. There's nothing with the new characters I disliked. It's just kind of treatment of legacy characters that rub me a little the wrong long way, and we're going to have a big episode coming up at some point where we debate The Last Jedi, which is that divisive movie in Star Wars. I can't wait to have a episode of Systematic Geekology about that. So Bad Batch, here we are, season 3. They're going to run, this is the final season. They're going to run all the way into the spring, all the way into May. We have a lot of episodes, but they dropped the first 3, which is the first little short story arc of the new season this past week. And so the first episode is Confined, dealing with Omega in captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have episode 2, Paths Unknown, where Hunter and Wrecker go on this adventure to try to find Omega. And then you circle back around in episode 3, Shadows of Tantus, where you go back to where Omega is, and Palpatine returns and shows up with his guards, and they talk about Project Necromancer, and they have this they talk about specimens, and we're like, ooh, who are those? And so Omega and Crosshair end up able to escape in a ship that landed or crash landed on Tantus, and so we're kind of left with this cliffhanger for episode 4. What happens next? What are your thoughts on this opening season? So let's start with episode 1. Where were you? You watched it? Man,
Yeah, it had
what did you feel?
Definitely has an Andor feel to it, and we all kind of like the jail episode. You know, it's they're in captivity, everything sucks, and you just kind of see how the Empire treats them, and very much like Andor, where he said like no one's listening, and they're just forced to do this grueling ritual every day, and it's different with Omega because they're clones and they're getting experimented on. Even Nala Se doesn't have like the bright spark. She's kind of like slumped over and walking, and it's just a dark tone to it, and I knew it was going to come to this, and I like it a lot. I feel like it's going to be very dark season. I mean, especially since it's all moving towards Project Necromancer, and it's juicy. I like it.
Yeah. I'm curious if they're going to go back and forth. Like, kind of the A plot will be the kind of the dark and gritty Project Necromancer, really heavy themes of experimentation and cloning, and the darkness that surrounds the Emperor. And then if they'll go back to kind of Adventure of the Week or some other things going on, I wonder how they'll balance a kids / animated series with the darker elements. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious how they can do it. There's a lot of episodes. I'm expecting some filler and some light moments, and I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, you're right. The start of this, like, even they spent time like hanging on the scene of like a dripping faucet. Of like if I don't even remember that in the first episode, like they're a prisoner, there's this dripping faucet. The animation is absolutely phenomenal what they're doing with the animation in this, like, where I had to pinch myself, like, that's not a real faucet and real water. That's someone had to animate and create that, which is just blows my mind. But yeah, I think you're right. That dark, gritty tone in episode 1, Andor feel was right there. Episode 2, we switch over and you get like Hunter and Wrecker out and about. The opening scene of them being mercenaries again. What do you thoughts of this episode?
I mean, it's like they're doing what they do best, kind of like how Han Solo went back to being himself in the sequel trilogy. It just reminds you, like, they're doing what they can do because they still kind of got to make ends meet, but they're really desiring to find Omega and deal with all the mess that's been going on.
Yeah. They do what they do best. They go out and they're mercenaries trying to find information and turn people on. They know the universe. Now, when they go to this planet that they got information from, that they think where where the scientist laboratory is and the clones are in Omega, they get there and they discover that it's no longer there. It's an abandoned laboratory, but they discover some clones, some teenage clones that were kind of left there to fend for themselves, almost like just kind of just hanging out. They're there, had to fend for themselves. I thought it had like a Stranger Things feel to it, in terms of these creatures running around, the vines and the dark layer, the upside down world. There's another feel there. It was the Adventure of the Week, but it still had some darker tones.
No, I mean, I think it had a like survival kind of like what was a movie with Tom Hanks where it was like they had to fend for themselves in the wild, and it's just kind of it reminds you that they abandoned the clones. They have just completely turned away from that, and they're going to conscripted soldiers, and the clones, having to find a purpose, because their original purpose is now, been defunct. That their original purpose was to be made for war, and now they're not going to be able to fulfill that role, and they've been abandoned, and now they got to learn how to survive, and it's very interesting. It makes you think a lot.
Yeah, I think there's some good ethical issues to talk about. Like, yeah, this is a kid show, Star Wars is sci-fi, but if you are watching with the family, I mean, think there's some conversations there you can have about how we treat the other, how we treat our veterans. What is our purpose when our purposes run out, or we're fired from our job, or whatever. Where do we find our new purpose, and then how do we treat our neighbor? I think are underlying questions that I think are there in this series. You can have conversations around. Is holding up a mirror to a lot of things in society that I think we could take a good look at and wrestle with. Now, fun fact: I don't know if you noticed this, but did you notice that Daniel Logan, who played young Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones, was the voice to a couple of these clones in this episode of Bad Batch?
I did not, but that is good to know, because I love little Easter eggs like that where someone gets to reprise their role years later. That's always fun.
Yeah. Daniel Logan, who played young Boba Fett, who's now older, has a family of his own, and has his own kind of Star Wars online auction of toys and things. He's still a huge Star Wars fan, and is a part of the fandom, and interacts with at Comic-Cons and things. And so to bring him back in, and Ian McDermott, who is the voice, or the Palpatine,
the Emperor himself.
Palpatine, in episode 3. So bringing the original actors to voice the animated version of themselves, I think is pretty cool. I love that. I loved hearing their voice of those Easter eggs.
Oh, gives you shivers or chills down your spine when you hear Ian McDermott being the Emperor, and just going full at it, and in all his glory, when he's talking about Project Necromancer, and even in the Legends canon, the Emperor having clones or trying to figure out immortality, it was always a thing, and it's nice to see that they're bringing back a lot of those the actual good ideas.
Yep. So episode 3 here, Shadows of Tannis, to go back to Omega. She goes and gets Crosshair, and is like, I'm not going to leave you, abandon you. Let's go. Let's get out of here. We got to escape. And the kind of ticking clock of this experiment of the blood, come to find out, I guess they mean metachlorines, or her blood test that she has a big M count. That's what they're looking for in this Project Necromancer. And so they're going to use her, experiment on her, something. So that's the urgency that she has to get out of there, because they found out that she is what they're looking for when it comes to this scientific project that the Emperor has. Now, do you think, what's your theory on, if you notice, definitely a callback to the prequel when they had like the laser walls, the laser walls that go through, kind of like at Duel of the Fates, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are battling Darth Maul and going through, you have this kind of guarded facility where they have specimens. What do you think's behind those walls? What are they looking at? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my guess is the Emperor is trying to figure out how to possess bodies that have, or possess clones, so that he can imbue them with his spirit upon death, so that he can possess them perfectly and be able to use his Jedi abilities. So I imagine the specimens are, to some degree, have to be something to do with that, where he might even be testing them to see if he can possess them with his abilities, to see if they'd be good fits or matches.
I'm wondering if behind that wall, if Grogu is back there, if they're going to lean into that, if he's been experimented upon. I'm curious, because remember in the Obi-Wan series, they did see, he went into that facility and saw these dead Jedi or captured Jedi in stasis in these kind of tubes, kind of like Snoke was.
Yeah.
And
Fortress Inquisitorius.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if they have some Jedi back there, or if Grogu back there, going to find a way to tie this back to the Mandalorian and Grogu with this series. I'm curious to see if they'll go that direction, to try to tie these pieces together in the Filoniverse for the movies that are coming up and that kind of thing. I don't know how I feel if I see a animated Grogu. or not. It depends on how well it's done. But I'm definitely curious what's behind there and what specimens they're kind of talking about.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping that there's some connections more to like Mando, like Dr. Pershing or Dr. Pershing's parents. It's kind of
Yes.
theorized that his mother is the doctor in Mount Tantus,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just seeing some more connections. Like I love connections between the different shows and things because it makes you feel rewarded as a viewer. That it's like, oh, you catch the throwbacks or you catch the reference, and it just connects the universe, makes it seem real.
Yeah, I think they wrestle with. I know I would too. You want people to come in fresh and be able to watch it on its own. That you don't have to do a lot of homework, a lot of big continuity swings, but also fans who've been around a long time. We want to see the connective tissues that they relate to each other, to know that we're in the same universe as the other shows that we're about. So I think they're doing that here, which brings me to kind of the next question. If Clone Wars, the animated series, made the prequel better for a lot of people, do you think Bad Batch will make the sequel trilogy better? How do you think, for you, do you think it's gonna help that sequel trilogy, or just kind of like, oh well, I kind of see where they're going, I'm gonna leave it on its own?
It's gonna make it better. At this point, they can't do no harm to it. They're going to make it much more digestible. Yeah. And I think that really we need like a recut version of the films, but the all these animated shows and the extra canon stuff, they are helping make sense of basically their on the fly ideas that they just kind of slap together in the sequel movies. That we have a lot of issues with the writing and the dialogue and the direction, and it seemed like they had like no idea what they were doing. And that's a tangent I'm not going to go into right now, but the Bad Batch and a lot of these other shows are definitely making the sequels better because they're actually connecting to the sequels. So whether we like it or not, here it comes.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to make it better, and it's going to explain things in the background that's going on.
Yeah, we have the Star Wars that we have, and so all right, they're not going to swipe it off and say, and they'll have some what ifs. They might have some reboots, but there's still, this is a part of the Star Wars story, and they'll find ways to either fill in the gaps or make it better, or this is the Star Wars we have. So I do think this is going to be a good thing for Star Wars. And from what I already see in these 3 episodes, the writing, the pacing, how I care for these characters, and I'm intrigued. I'm paying attention to what's going on. I'm looking for the Easter eggs. They have my attention as a long-term fan. And so yeah, I'm very hopeful for this season. And I really like what the Bad Batch is doing and how it ties into the larger Star Wars universe. I'm here for it. I know we have a long way to go, and some episodes will hit more than others, but man, it's a cartoon, it's an animated series, it's Star Wars. There's gonna be lasers, and Omega has a dog now. That's kind of fun. She has a pet, and I'm a fan of dogs, and so for her to like save this animal, you see her compassion for her fellow clones, but also for the animals that are around her and taking care. That's endearing to me. So
yeah, when in doubt, you need a little tiny animal companion to endear people to the characters.
There you go. There you go. What are some of your hopes for the rest of the season, John? Well, what do you hope to see?
I hope to see a little bit more Project Necromancer, some more references to other shows like Mando and like what we were discussing earlier. I think they are going to either name drop or we'll see Snoke in one of the test tubes or something. But I think it's definitely going to connect to the universe at large, and it's going to make the sequels make sense.
Yeah,
I fully expect that they will do a great job with a dark tone to set the scene for A New Hope and how bleak the galaxy is at that point.
I'm wondering who survives this season, if we'll have more deaths, if Tech is even dead. But there's other sacrifices to kind of, they can't all survive or maybe they can. I don't know. We'll see. But, again, it's a kid show. Same way with Rebels, not everybody survives. Yeah, not everybody survived Rebels, and we have the same thing. So we'll see. I'm curious what's going to happen with Omega. Like, I wonder if she'll turn into another bounty hunter, or if she'll pop up and like, oh, that's been Omega the whole time. There she is. She shows up in other ways, or will show up in a Ahsoka series, or another movie, as one who's hanging out with Captain Rex. Because they're now partners. I don't know. I hope she survives, and I hope they can tie her in to perhaps a legacy character at some point down the road, kind of like they did with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm hoping for this season. I think it's going to be a fun ride. I'm very well. I can't wait to see how it unfolds, and we'll keep in these episodes of What's News. We'll keep you abreast of what's going on and what's happening in this animated series. And then when it wraps up, come this spring, we'll do another big finale and check in and see how it landed for us, and see where it's going with Star Wars. I think we'll have some more Star Wars content over the summer and maybe in the fall. And we got a movie that they're trying to work on, but right now this is the Star Wars we have leading up to May the 4th. So we'll see. We'll see.
May the 4th be with you.
That's right. Cool. John, any closing remarks? Anything else out there you want to lift up for our fans and listeners?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I don't have anything in particular except check out the new season of The Bad Batch and get caught up.
Yeah, I think that we're giving our high recommendation. If you haven't watch season 1, watch season 2, get caught up, and then follow this third season. I think it's gonna be fun for Star Wars fans. For absolutely. All right, friends. Thanks for chiming in, and thanks for being a part of this show and Systematic Geekology. Share with a friend. Connect with us on social media. We do have a Discord that we invite you to be a part of, to enter into those conversations. And man, like we say, there's no shortage of geeky content, and we love for you to come and geek out with us. Always remember, share the faith, share the geek, and may the Force be with you.